I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you.
And welcome into Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. The last 8 Ohio State running backs who've got roughly 100-ish carries takes us back to 2019. Where do we see CJ Donaldson and James Peoples fitting in with those 8 running backs? We'll go over it today. Texas in 3 weeks now, a scrimmage today for the Buckeyes, and you guys are mad as heck. I've been doing this for 18 months now, and one of the things I've always enjoyed is reading the comments, responding to the comments, bringing some of them up on the show. We will do that today, but in all the time I've been doing it, I have never seen a more unanimous reaction than we've got on something I said the other day. I mean, unanimous. There might be one person that disagrees out of 25 comments that I got on this thing. You'll have to wait and find out what that is. But a busy week 2 of camp for the Buckeyes at the Woody. We got a lot of odds and ends to get to today, as well as a couple of videos I got to play for you. We heard from a lot of the big timers at Ohio State, running backs, linebackers, Kenyatta Jackson, JJ, Caleb, Carnell Tate, Ryan Day, Matt Patricia, Brian Hartline. The Big Ten Network and their traveling band of microphones and cameras came to town to watch practice on Thursday. I watched all the interviews coming out of that, and Ryan Day's interview, basically I can just sum it up by this. Everybody is so screwed, man. They're so screwed. We got the best coach in the country at Ohio State, and the man has got an aura of confidence, and it just feels good. Feels good to watch it. It's like a different guy. He can say all he wants. It's me looking at him different. I don't agree. I think he's a different dude. Matt Patricia always gives a good interview. Talking about Texas, he said he's really excited for the fans, wants it to be really loud. I think it is going to be really loud. I think as Buckeye fans, we need to double down and embrace the big noon and make it our time slot. We need to make it our time slot and say we own it like it's a source of pride. We need to totally reverse psychology this thing and shoot for the craziest noon atmosphere of anybody in the country. Brag about it. Hang our hat on it. We need to do it because we're stuck and we can't do anything about it. But what we can do is make it miserable on Texas. And Patricia was urging that on. I think he's got the right attitude. Let's make it crazy. Let's get after the quarterback. Those are his words, not mine. Make it uncomfortable. I love to hear that from him. This is my favorite thing about him. And the way that we see the guys getting after the quarterback, I really can't wait to see from his defense. He was asked about the strength of his defense, and he said it's the secondary to linebacker communication, the most experienced guys on the team. Then he talked about the defensive line, said that Kenyatta Jackson, Caden Curry were coming along really well. He's seen a lot of growth in the edge. And then he called K-Mac the anchor of the interior, said Edric's a really good player. And there's been a lot of rotation on the inside. Some days there's been improvement. Some days we got to push him really hard. That's the area that's grown, though. So he has seen growth on the inside and also made a comment that makes you go, it's clearly the one that's sticking out to him, too. The one we've talked about, obviously, all offseason as maybe, a little bit behind the rest of the defense. Brian Hartline, on what he's learned from Brian Day, being intentional and learning how to address all the different looks, etc. Talked about the quarterback battle being a true quarterback battle and that it's been good for the team. They've really pushed each other very hard. And then he was asked about the offensive line system, as Jerry DiNardo worded it, and said, it seems like you got an offensive line coach for every 2 offensive linemen, which is hilarious. But Hartline said that it was a great opportunity to really invest. They were looking at resources, said they're good on skill. How can we invest on the power? And they chose to invest it this way in the offensive line unit, bringing in Tebow is what they call Tyler Bowen, and Charlie Dickey, Marcus Johnson. I love it. These guys are working together great. The offensive line has a clear, almost defined 2 deep. There's 10 guys there that you'd feel pretty comfortable going all the way down to 10 playing. And that is something. Quite the turnaround in a really short amount of time. When we look back at 2023, the starting offensive line heading into, spring camp that year was, it looked bad. It looked rough. And from there to where you're at now with 10 playable guys, and then when you go behind that 10 playable guys, you got guys like Carter Lowe and Javon McFadden who look like, okay, next year these guys could potentially be rolling to get into that, or, revving up to try to get in that top 10. But things look really good there. Ohio State's favorite Michigan alum and Ohioan Jake Butt weighed in on the practice that he watched at the Woody. I'm just going to read you his breakdown here. He gave a pretty extensive one. He says, lots of new faces, same goals. I wonder where Jeremiah and Carnell would rank in the NFL for a wide receiver 1-2 combo. They'd be up there. Obviously, the quarterback battle, different guys. Julian, more of a pure passer. Felt he was more accurate and technical operating the offense today. Lincoln, a bigger, stronger athlete. When he pulled the ball and read options, you got to see a special athlete in space. Maybe we see both because of the complementary skills. Both were getting reps with the ones. Not concerned about that position. Either guy will be fine. Recently, I've seen a lot of this. Maybe we'll see both stuff. Do you think this is coming? Do you think there will be a package with the two of them? Or, I'm sorry, a package for Lincoln, say if Julian's the starter. When we go back to 2023, looking at Kyle McCord, who was a bit of a stiff athletically, and Devin Brown, who was not as stiff athletically, but an average athlete, kind of hyped up all off season and in that camp as though he was a really good athlete. And boy, I couldn't wait to see it because it wasn't something that he was known for in high school. It certainly doesn't show up on his high school film. He was a gunslinger, Brett Favre type on his high school film. And when we were hearing what a great athlete he was, I was really curious. I don't know how I missed that. Then we finally see him run with the ball. And no, he's not a great athlete. He's a fine athlete. Now we look at these two here. Lincoln really is a really, really good athlete. And he's a big, strong kid, obviously, and an Iron Buckeye who takes pride in being physical. Could it be something we see? I think it just might be. It just might be. Julian, a little more, I don't want to say frail. He's not as big and strong as Kyle was, but potentially, would it bother you? I don't think it would bother me. It's not ideal though. It's not something that I love, but it wouldn't bother me. And keeping Lincoln involved, I guess, would be pretty cool. And of course, I'm talking again like this thing's over. It's not over, but that's just me being presumptive. Jake Butt continues. I don't know what defenses will be able to do to stop this offense. You have to play split safety to slow down these wide receivers, but I watched Max Clare create separation with ease, and Jelani Thurman is a problem because of his size. So what do? You have a linebacker try to guard them with no safety help? ? That can't be the game plan, in my opinion. They're too good. Max Clare is a different talent than OSU has had at the position, and the room is the deepest it's been. And he's correct. There isn't an answer, and there never is when you got a tight end that good with these kind of wide receivers, which is why I think many of us have been clamoring for the use of the tight end to pick up those gimmies like so many teams do against us so often. This year we're going to see it, so I'm really excited about that. Hearing from him, a tight end, a good tight end, that Max Clare was separating with ease is just really encouraging. He continues, maybe you play nickel, maybe you play dime. That's when Ohio State's offensive line and running backs need to impose their will. They have the bodies. They have the depth. Ethan Onyanwa is a freaky looking dude out there. And the unit should be competing again to be at the top of the conference. Running back looks like a healthy rotation. CJ Donaldson reminds me of Carlos Hyde. Physical, strong, powerful. Now that he's lost some weight, he's quicker. The room has multiple ball players, and they'll utilize them. Defensively, I'll start with the linebackers, the most athletic group Ohio State has had. Styles and Reese are as freaky as they come, and they give you so much flexibility as they can cover sideline to sideline and hang with the tight ends. Caleb Downs is a 2-for-1 special, meaning his instincts, IQ, and closing speed effectively give you an additional defender on the field. He can drop into coverage, leaving the flat wide open, and then close and tackle in the flat, closing down any yards after catch, one of just many examples. Defensive line is the key. I would put their floor as a top 5 defensive line. He's talking in the conference. The question will be the ceiling. Can they dominate and control teams the way they did last year? They have the size and the physical attributes. Last thing that stood out, I had the thought earlier in drills watching Mylan Graham compete against Caleb Downs and Sanchez compete against the wide receivers. You have NFL-level veterans competing against your young talent. That forces the young talent to be at their very best every day. They have to learn, grow, adapt, spread throughout the roster. That's how you compete and reload every single year. The program is in a really good place, and that's credit to Ryan Day. And certainly it is, man. What a great thing to read about the program from a guy that I think most of us really respect his opinion on the game, Jake Butt, even though he didn't credit my man Dylan Davis on his last call for the Buckeyes spring game. That's all right. Complimentary things to say about the Buckeyes. You can buy me off easy. And that made me really happy to read that. But obviously, we know that about this team already. Talking to JJ and Carnell said something. He said you can't really get drives going with the two quarterbacks, which was funny to hear him say. He didn't. I mean, it's not that it's a negative thing, but it's like these guys are ready. They're ready to get it going. We want to play with the quarterback. We want to get some offense going. It probably is pretty frustrating. Ryan Day said, just as I said with Tony the other day on the last show, when he was asked about the cornerbacks, he said, I'd like to see them continue to compete through this week, maybe into next week, but you'd like to have an idea who your guy's going to be with at least a couple of weeks out heading into the first game. So that's what I said to Tony. Monday, the 18th, that's when I think Ryan Day is going to name the starting quarterback. That gives you that week starting that Monday, and then the following week, Texas is that next Saturday. And I think that's when we're going to find out officially who's the quarterback. Obviously, I think most of us expect that to be Julian Sayin. We'll see if Lincoln can turn it on and make a. It seems like it's been trending Julian for a little bit now. I'd say after maybe day 3 on, everything that's been kind of leaking out this week has all been saying Julian's continuing to impress. And it just feels like that's the way it's going to go. And we're going to find that out Monday, the 18th. Ryan Day on the postseason, he brought up the 4 teams for the Big Ten again. I've gone on record saying the Big Ten deserves 4. And then he said, the more teams in the playoff, the better. It's good for the game, which I vehemently disagree with. There's certainly a limit where it's diminishing returns. Coach Locke and the running backs spoke on Thursday, James Laurinaitis and the linebackers on Tuesday. Not much to get to with James other than he views Peyton Pierce as a starter along with Arvell and Sonny, which pretty awesome to hear about Peyton. And he really speaks about him with a twinkle in his eye. But man, Arvell Reese, this guy, they asked him how impactful he can be. How impactful do you think he'd be? I mean, really impactful. He's a man of few words, a very confident man, and he should be. Guy's going to be an absolute monster. And then we heard from Coach Locke and a couple of the running backs on Thursday. Now, Coach Locke, he's a tough cookie, man. I mean, we know he's a tough cookie in a lot of ways, but the way I mean it is he doesn't give any information at all. When they ask him a question, he just kind of spins it off into how he coaches, and he doesn't get around to answering the question. So I don't think we learned anything, including anything really about who those 2 starters are going to be, what the carry split might look like, if those even if 2 backs carrying the ball is even going to be the thing they're going to go with. Of course, we assume it's James Peoples and CJ Donaldson, and they'll run it pretty similar to how they ran it last year. But he certainly isn't coming off any of that information. It was pretty funny. He was asked about the 2-person share, and somebody asked him, like last year, do you think it's ideal to kind of give the share of the carries to 2 people? And he immediately said, these kids aren't Q and Trey. They're themselves. I want them to be themselves. You guys keep asking about last year. I mean, the dude was literally just asking. He was saying, like last year when you shared the carries with 2 people. I bet that guy turtled up really quick. The following question, though, was how have they come along with pass protection? And Coach Locke immediately brought up Trey. Now, Coach, you just said we're talking. Those guys were last year. These guys are their own guys. I don't know, man. It's a bit of a double standard. But we really got nothing to report on. CJ is a smart cookie, man. Really like listening to CJ Donaldson, who said he's the bad cop and James Peoples is the good cop.
Also, he is Knuckles to James Peoples' Sonic. Now, James called him Sonic and Knuckles. I have no idea what that's in reference to, but apparently there are other running back tandems who are called Sonic and Knuckles. Now, I know Sonic. I played Sonic the Hedgehog on Sega Genesis when I was a kid. I don't know what Knuckles is, but I get it, right? Like Sonic is fast. Knuckles must be tough. And I like it. I like Knuckles for a tough nickname. So it sounded good. And apparently they've stolen this from somebody. I've never heard it before. So I can't confirm nor deny that one right there. But they make for some good sound bites, those two. I really do like them. And James Peoples, he's a funny kid. A reminder to everybody, James Peoples, despite being from San Antonio, Texas, Buckeye by blood. Let me play a little clip for you here if you weren't familiar.
I grew up watching Texas.
I grew up watching Ohio State. So, I mean, even though I was from Texas, I always was watching Ohio State because, like I said, my parents, they're from Ohio, and I grew up watching them. But Texas, like, it was right up the road from me where I lived in San Antonio, so I would go up there often. But, you know.
Any friends that go to school there?
I did. Freddie Dubois, he's a receiver. And I know, of course, I talked to a few other guys, and I know Hero, he transferred over there. So there's a few guys I know over there, a few people I know over there. But, yeah.
How close did you come to Texas?
I mean, they were my top 4 teams, so it was pretty close, yeah.
Buckeyes were able to beat those Longhorns because he is Buckeye by blood. And a great job by Tony Alford on the evaluation, on pursuing him. It was really cool seeing him as there is a picture of him when during the recruitment in his bedroom, and he's got an Ohio State pillowcase. There's like a Buckeye blanket hanging on the wall. So that's always cool when you get those out of town real Buckeye fans, because mom and dad were Buckeye fans. So an extra reason to root for James Peoples. Other than that, another great dude, as is CJ Donaldson. And it's just, honestly, it's a challenge at this point when you listen to these guys. Okay, find one kid here who isn't just, aside from being a great athlete, like a really great young guy. They're all great. It's amazing as you see there's is it South Carolina or LSU? Some kid got popped for a big drug bust. A player for a different school. I'll just say that. And you know, sometimes you never know with things like that, but it just, I don't know. I'd be really surprised. We've never seen Ryan Day's guys get in any kind of trouble off the field. None of them. Now you got Emeka Egbuka is just getting such incredible praise from Tampa Bay. It's insane. I've seen Baker go on and on about Emeka like 3 separate times now in viral clips. And then there was a thing that they did at practice yesterday. You had one coach, another teammate, just talking about how ridiculous he is. He can play all 3 positions already for them. Consummate professional. And that's just what it feels like for guys that come out of this program. Who wouldn't want to go there? I don't know.
Emeka Egbuka. How are you handling him as a rookie?
He's so cerebral. Like, he pays attention in everything. He can play any receiver spot. Like, Mike didn't go today. He played Mike's spot. It makes it special to see him do that and just really be accountable. There's certain guys that if a bad thing happens in practice, they're like, all right, next play, I'm going to go do it. He's pissed. Like, it really does bother him when he's not perfect. And that's a rare trait that I think he's always had it.
His approach of how he grasps everything and run the right routes. He sticks his face in their block, and he's been very professional in his technique. He comes out individually. He returns punts. He does every little thing and does all the little things.
Could Egbuka be a number 1 right now this year on any other team? I guess, of course, not on this one.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
What is the one quality? Just like the complete playerness?
Complete player,
Yeah.
professional, can play all 3 positions.
He's definitely putting in the work. You know, everybody's out here raving about him, and you can see it. You know, he's definitely doing what he's supposed to do, and I think he's gonna be a big part of our success.
So we did a show yesterday, our first one. It's over on Buckeye Huddle. He said, so his mom and dad, you know, they're Florida State alums. They were going to a Florida State game, and he said he's not even going now because they tried to turn this into something. He said it was never a recruiting visit. Now, they're still after him, I'm sure.
Have you seen Florida State's offensive line the last few years? Those guys need to spend, and they will. So that's going to be, I think Aaron's going to have some financial decisions to make here in the next few months. But yeah, it's so far so good. But
Ben Congdon, I would really like to see him double back on Ben Congdon. They never offered. We're going to keep those up. It was a lot of fun with Mark. And we were talking right there about Aaron Thomas. So Aaron Thomas,
the Buckeyes lineman out of Arizona. He was a big win for Tyler Bowen, beat Florida State, beat Texas A&M. And Aaron, a true tackle body. Florida State has 3 offensive linemen in their class right now. Florida State is where his parents went. His dad played offensive line at Florida State. And On3 had tweeted that Aaron was going to a Florida State game. Well, they made it sound like it was a visit at a game. And Aaron tweeted that wasn't true. And it wasn't. He was just going to the game with his parents. However, I'm sure Florida State knew about it and was going to, talk to him, etc. But he told me it wasn't a recruiting visit. However, Florida State was going to probably treat it as such. Anyway, he said he's not going now. Nonetheless, Florida State, 16th-ish ranked class right now. They have Duron Parks in their class right now. He is their only lineman that looks like, Duron Parks, who was barely a take for Ohio State, is their top guy. And after that, it falls off a cliff to 2 developmental guys, neither of whom is a true tackle body. What I'm saying is Aaron Thomas would be a huge score for them. Dad's an alum. Like, they're not going to throw in the towel. So they're going to keep coming, as Mark was saying there. Aaron seems really in on the Buckeyes, but the money sometimes is the money. We'll see what happens there. It is one to monitor. And I was talking about Ben Congdon there. There's been a lot of talk about the Buckeyes potentially doubling back on Adam Guthrie, who committed to Clemson. I did a little digging on that today, and my gut feeling originally was he really, really likes Clemson and Matt Luke and Dabo, and that whole thing is like Clemson has a strange pull. We've seen it with plenty of guys that when you seem to be a Clemson guy, you're really a Clemson guy. And Adam has just felt like that to me. But after doing a little digging today, I feel even more certain. Though I did find out Ohio State is definitely attempting to, they're reaching out, they're doubling back, they're keeping contact, but that one seems pretty firm. And what we do know is a couple of things about the money. Clemson, number one, handles the money with freshmen like Ohio State. He's probably not getting some huge bag. And Ohio State isn't going to go and offer him some huge money to get him back in the fold. That said, I don't think there's anything going on there or going to be any movement with Adam Guthrie. But Ben Congdon, on the other hand, there could be, I think. And Ben Congdon obviously committed to Miami. The Buckeyes never offered him. They were maybe going to go down that road with him. And then he kind of surprise committed on a weekend visit, unofficial visit to Miami. So something to look out for. We'll certainly keep our radar out for it, but check us out on the Buckeye Huddle channel for the Skull session. I'll let you guys know when we're doing that Skull session. Let's talk about these running backs. So what I did was I went back and I was looking at 100 carries minimum. I made an exception for one guy, and I went back to 2019. So in 2023, Trey. Last year, obviously, Q and Trey. 2023, Trey. Then you had a mix of Xavier Johnson, Chip Trainum, and Mayan. Chip was the only one who came close enough that we're going to count Chip. But Mayan, the previous year in 2022, was obviously way over that. So 2022, Mayan, Trey, and Dallin Hayden. 2021, Trey, Mayan, and Master. In 2020, Trey Sermon and Master Teague. And then in 2019, JK, that was his 2003-yard season. He had 300 carries. Matter of fact, Master T got 135 carries on that year. They really ran the ball. But that's the list of backs since 2019. So Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, J.K. Dobbins, Trey Sermon. That's your top tier. And that's a hell of a top tier, man. Then the second four would be Mayan Williams, Master Teague, Dallin Hayden, Chip Trainum. So when we look at CJ Donaldson and we look at James Peoples, it seems to me like these guys fit right in the middle of there, right behind Trey Sermon. And with the potential for Peoples, I think to potentially hop up over there. CJ feels like he's right in the middle there. With, who knows what his potential is. We know he's got a lot of experience and certainly is looking a lot different than he used to. I think these guys are definitely a championship caliber level backfield, and that's what you need. Are they championship caliber? I think so. I'm getting more and more excited about him as we get closer. And in addition to that, Bo Jackson as well, who, if we're looking at that list of guys, like I think Bo is talented enough to definitely crack into the top of that by the time he's done at Ohio State. I did my Mount Rushmore the other day. It's the third time I did my Mount Rushmore the other day, and it was the second time I've done that. And I did it because the guys were doing it. They did a video of it, the young guys, the players. So I went through my Mount Rushmore, and it's a list that always gets a ton of reaction. And it's crazy to me how much reaction it gets from people saying, like, your list sucks. Your list is crazy. My list is like the most vanilla, basic consensus list that there is. Like, if you talk to 10 people who really are nerds about Ohio State football history, their list will look exactly like mine. Hence why I said my list. And as soon as I said my list, Tony Gerdeman came on and he said, yeah, I totally agree with your list. Like, there's nothing outlandish about my list. I mean, we're talking about the Mount Rushmore, meaning the top 4 players in the history of the program. That doesn't mean your top 4 favorite guys, like from when you were a kid. I mean, there could be one of those guys on there, but it's not going to be all 4 just from your lifetime. It doesn't mean the most entertaining 4 guys. It doesn't mean the toughest 4 guys. Like, my personal favorite Mount Rushmore is different than this. This is the school Mount Rushmore, going to carve these guys' faces out of the mountain to represent the university and the football program from the beginning of time to now. The biggest honor. Like, you got to be extraordinary. Your contribution has to be extraordinary. You have to be an extraordinary player. Every other player who walks through the program looks up to you. Fans talk about you with reverence. And there could really only be 2 answers in your 1 and 2 slot, right? Like, if your number 1 and number 2 answers aren't Orlando Pace and Archie Griffin, then I appreciate your contribution. Your list is wrong. That's just it. Your list is wrong, but I do respect you. Your list is just wrong. Orlando Pace is the most dominant offensive player in the history of Ohio State football. A whole lot of dominant offensive players. Orlando Pace is the best offensive lineman in the history of football at any level. At any level. And 75 is a Buckeye from the Buckeye State. Without a doubt, Mount Rushmore. Archie Griffin, the only 2-time Heisman winner, who has not only done that, but has also been the ambassador for Ohio State athletics for 40 years and remains doing so until today. It's he's a lion. He's an absolute lion. If his face isn't on that Mount Rushmore, you've done a disservice to the program. You really have. So those 2 guys got to be there. Now, my third guy, I get pushback on it because a lot of people just can't get down with old players. They can't get down with old players because you can't compare athletes back then to athletes of today. They obviously would never see the field. They would never be recruited. They'd be laughed at as a walk-on. I disagree with that logic because there will be Ohio State football in 100 years from now. And those people there, would we like them talking about guys from our era like that? No, the guys from our era mean just as much as those guys in 100 years from now. But we know, I mean, just you look back 100 years, American men were just naturally smaller. We will continue to evolve, get larger. Training will be different. Things will be different. The guys will be bigger. They'll be faster. They'll be stronger. And none of our guys will be able to compete with the guys in 100 years. Chick Harley made Ohio State football different than Illinois and Wisconsin. And I don't just mean the program. I mean the state. He put the state of Ohio on the path of, okay, this is our thing. Like, we love this thing. You went from a 20,000 seat stadium to the shoe. Money raised by the public, all invigorated by that guy who left in the middle of his career to go fight in World War I, came back beat Michigan for the first time, first 3-time All-American, first unanimous All-American. The list goes on and on and on. Chick Harley is, to me, a no-brainer, got to be on there. It's the fourth player that's up for debate. The fourth player is up for debate, and to me, the fourth player is Troy Smith. And there can be a few answers for four. I talked to Tony when we were talking the other day about it. That was the Monday or the Wednesday Buckeye primetime and Buckeye Huddle primetime. He said he usually goes with Woody Hayes because it's so tough. And it is so tough. His first three was exactly the same as mine, but the fourth is so tough. The reason I go with Troy over Eddie George, who would be my fifth, is they both faced some adversity to start their career, but Troy, with the 3-0 record against Michigan, the first quarterback to do that since like 1930. And he was also kind of the godfather of the modern day Ohio State quarterback. The quarterbacks we see now at Ohio State, Troy was the first one that really felt like that. Troy was automatic. If a play needed made, I didn't feel, and still haven't to this day, more confident with anybody more than I ever felt with Troy Smith. Prime Troy Smith wins the Heisman by the largest margin ever at the time. And I just loved him, man. Just loved him. And again, a dude from Ohio with a story. The freshman year, his freshman year, he's an athlete. He's returning kicks. And that guy ends up being your Heisman winning, 3-time Michigan beating quarterback. I mean, it's an impressive story. It's a great story. I don't think Eddie's a wrong answer either. And I don't think any of your answers would be wrong either. Some of them would be wrong, but you could run them by me. But the first three, those are the first three. Anyway, I wanted to bring this up again today because I got a list from somebody who left a comment, and this guy did from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. He did a Mount Rushmore for each decade, and I wanted to read it to you. So in the 60s, he's got Paul Warfield, Matt Snell, Jack Tatum, and Jim Stillwagon. And I do want to point out that Jack Tatum was on several of your Mount Rushmores when you guys were commenting on that. A good choice. In the 70s, he's got Randy Gradishar, who is on James Laurinaitis's. He's got Archie, Chris Ward, and Tom Cousineau. In the 80s, he's got Chris Spielman, Chris Carter, Keith Byers, Jim Lachey. I think that's spot on for the 80s. The 90s, I totally agree here. Eddie George, Orlando Pace, Mike Vrabel, Antoine Winfield. The 2000s, Troy Smith, AJ Hawk, Cam Hayward, Nick Mangold. The 10s, Zeke, Chase Young, Braxton, JK. In the 20s, CJ Stroud, Marv, Smith, and Downs. So we've got two currently on the team in JJ, Caleb, in the 20s. My personal Mount Rushmore. Oh, by the way, I do want to say for the Mount Rushmore, Jeremiah Smith on pace to overtake Troy for me. Like one more season of what he's already been. And you go to the Orlando argument. Like I legitimately believe like he's going to be a top 3 all-time wide receiver by the time he's done, maybe the best ever. And it'll be one of those stupid LeBron Jordan debates. I definitely think that that's what he's going to be. He's going to win that 4th spot. And who knows, maybe somebody someday, the next guy that pops on that list that's as impactful as JJ kicks off the old timer, kicks off old Chick Harley. Who knows? But Troy would be the first off, and our man would be the JJ would be the one to do it. My personal Mount Rushmore, meaning my favorite players of, obviously these are usually for all of us kind of come through the same time period. And that's Mike Vrabel, who I was a ball boy for Mike Vrabel's high school team. And he was just larger than life. Antoine Winfield, who I was a freshman, but my team played against, Eddie George, and AJ Hawk. So Mike Vrabel, Antoine Winfield, Eddie George, AJ Hawk. That is my personal favorite Mount Rushmore. And that's that with that segment. Now, I want to get to a couple of your comments here before we roll into okay. So Nana says, I love the black uniforms. I was pumped the first time we see those. We should definitely wear them a lot more. A lot of comments about the uniform. We talked the other day about the Buckeyes doing a scarlet out, a black out, and a stripe out. Now, I did find out from our friend Emily. She sent me a picture. So the stripe out, what they're going to do is in the student section, so in the south stands, the whole stadium is going to be gray. And then in the south stands, they're actually going to do the helmet stripe. They're going to do black, white, red. So all the way down the south stands like that. So that's pretty cool. But the uniforms, we don't have any confirmation whether or not they'll be wearing those or not. And I did hear that we had confirmation about scarlet. Then I've since heard that no, we don't. So who knows what to believe. They try to not let that information out or confirm or deny that until a day or two before. I think it would be a big fail if they did not wear those for those games. It just seems silly to me to do it and not capitalize on the whole deal, the whole spectacle of it. On to uniforms. Kyle Greenwood says, Ohio State needs to wear the gray sleeves that they wear in the playoffs every game in the regular season. Interesting he brings this up. So Wednesday morning, I went on my buddy's Ron and Q's show, the Buckeye Roast, and Ron, a friend of mine, and he knows how to push my buttons.
Chuck, go ahead, give your spiel.
About what? What are we talking? What about?
Sleeves.
Give me the goddamn sleeves back. I want the gray sleeves. This is ridiculous. We are now on year number 20. They rolled this out, and we all looked at it and said, this is terrible. This is not good. It'll last 3 years, and they'll go back after they sell their jerseys. And here we are, 20 flipping years later, and we are still stuck with this garbage helmet stripe sleeve on our jersey instead of the most beautiful jersey in all of college football. It's absurd.
See?
Hey, don't worry, Jug. It's coming after the stadium renovations.
Right. By the way, speaking of stadium renovations, I did just catch that Nebraska, who just built an unbelievable new facility for the players. It's been open now for 2 seasons. This thing is absurd. I took a virtual tour of it. It's ridiculous. They're doing a $500 million to $1 billion renovation project on Memorial Stadium. And I see that, and it's like, okay, that's Nebraska. I don't know how many people are in the state of Nebraska, but I would guess it's, 2.5 million, 3 million. Ohio, the flagship university of the state of Ohio, feigns poor when it's time to do things like renovate our stadium. Somehow Nebraska can find money to get that done, build new facilities. I'd love to know how this is. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I think that there is no area that Ohio State should trail anybody in, let alone a place like Nebraska. And yes, they have great passion for football. It doesn't outweigh our passion. There aren't as many of them. Did hear that there are plans to take a look at renovating the Woody again. This would be the 4th renovation of a building, major renovation. They did the first 3, I think, 7 years ago, then 7 years before that, then 7 years before that. Look, I get the fact that it is having some grit to it is a good thing. You know, you don't want things to be too spoiled, too resort-ish. I understand that. There's definitely something to that. However, when you get to a certain point where like you're running out of room, there's new technologies that are in these buildings that you can't use because you don't have enough room. And now in the state of Ohio, you have the second best facilities, the second best football facilities in the state of Ohio by a good margin to Cincinnati. I mean, it just, to me, is like, again, Ohio State should be second to none in any department when it comes to football. It's just how I feel about it. And these penny pinching measures by a school that just has so much support, some massive alumni base. Who's running the checkbook, man? You know what I mean? It's like, what's going on here? Get it fixed, get it done, get it taken care of. And this does go back a little bit to the sports argument, the number of sports, which, you know, when we talked about it, like, I know there's a lot of you guys who feel the same way about me with the stadium and the facilities, but at the same time, you also want to remain at 36 sports. And it does kind of get to a point where, okay, well, there's some of the sacrifice right there. But again, different issue for a different day. I do want to hit on, before we go, the song. So we went over the game day stuff the other day, the new game day stuff that they're bringing in. And it was pretty much unanimous approval to most of the different things that they're trying. Everybody was kind of happy that there's some initiative. Not everybody. Most people were happy that there is some initiative to enhance game day. Game day needs to be better at Ohio Stadium, and we're going to make it so at noon this year, particularly for Texas. But it was also near unanimous, and in the 18 months I've been doing this, I've never seen quite the reaction so unanimously and so negatively on one particular thing, and it is about that song by Camp from Ohio. The song itself, I thought, was a pretty good tune, but the stated goal of the song, they took it from Oregon. Oregon sings a song together, and it has Oregon in it, and that's what they want this song to be. They want it to be like a sing-along anthem song. But it's not a popular song. Not a lot of people know the song, apparently. And when everybody listened to the song, they said a lot of the same comments. It's too fast. We're not going to be able to sing along to it because it's too fast. You get 100,000 people trying to sing along to a song. You want a little bit of a slower melodic tempo, and it just comes too fast. And you can't understand the guy saying Ohio because he's got one of these, you know how some guys sing, they want to make it sound different or neat. So he's got a neat sounding Ohio, and it doesn't really sound like Ohio unless you're saying, did he say Ohio? I think he said Ohio. And that's the refrain, but unanimously smashed it. If you want to have a laugh, read through my comments on that video with the changes. There are some bangers. There are some bangers about that song, man. Maybe I'll scroll some on the screen here when I'm done with this and edit it, but there's some fury. Now, here's the good news. I think that's negotiable. Okay. I mean, I feel like you should have maybe tried to gauge the fan base about this as this entire thing. Like literally there are some folks, and I got no time for people that are 100% negative all the time. I got the same amount of time for people that are 100% positive all the time, and point to the people that say anything negative, anything, and say like, of course, if people are just going to complain or bitch no matter what. No, it's valid criticism when 19 out of 20 fans are saying the same thing. That means you probably might want to revisit this one. That means it's valid criticism. And that appears to be the case with this song. And since this entire thing is to pump up the fans and help the fan environment, one would think it might have been a good idea, if you're going to make the anthem for the stadium, maybe you should consult with the fans. It seems like a really basic idea. Instead, it sounds like you had this couple, the Greco couple who does the entertainment, and Ross Bjork, a fellow from Illinois, decide what us sticky, one comment was hilarious. What us sticky flannel wearing, chain smoking, PBR drinking Ohioans want in our song. And that was basically the way that gentleman felt. That song had a feel to that. And he said, we're not that. Apparently that's what they think we are. I don't think most people thought that was the reason why people didn't like the song, but it was really funny. But it seems very basic that, yeah, you should consult probably with the fans. Hey, what do you think? We got 4 or 5 songs here with an Ohio theme. Let's do some Twitter polls. Let's gauge the public a little bit. And no, they don't got to make, you don't have to go with their vote, but get some feedback. They apparently did get some feedback on all this stuff, but it seems to be a pretty small group. And I just refuse to believe that the people I talk to, hardcore Ohio State fans, can have that much different of a view on this than whoever they were surveying. So it must have been a very small group of people that all work with them on the team. And, oh yeah, we think this one's great. Well, this is a popular band. Like, the popularity of the band, if it's something you're trying to make a long-term tradition, should never have anything to do with it. It's about the song and only the song. Anyway, let's talk a little recruiting before we wrap. So Texas Tech signed LaDainian Guyton, who is, for me, we talk about freaky edge rushers, man. This guy is one of the best I've ever seen in my life. He is so dynamic, so amazing. And he's going to Texas Tech, which means we don't need to worry about him going to Georgia. We don't need to worry about him going to Texas. I'm all for it. What I will say is the Texas Tech has like the 25th ranked class. Like, they're not someone Ohio State needs to worry about, but I would worry about this kid if he was at one of those schools. Texas Tech, their GM, the guy who is in charge of making the deals, spending all the big money they're spending, said, we're going to poach some guys. That's what he told Steve Wiltfong earlier this week. He said, I'm going to do senior evaluations on the 26th class across the country. And if somebody is underpaying an elite guy that has senior tape, he might be a 4 or 5 star guy. People are only paying him $100 or $200,000. I'm going to go give him $300 or $400,000 and steal somebody. And he's going to do that. You know who does a lot of underpaying of 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 star guys? This leads me to Braylon Womack. Obviously, unless you're living under a rock, there is a ton of Braylon Womack talk in the last couple of days. And a lot of it is panic talk, Ross Bjork not going to let the staff pony up, etc. It's not really how that works, but what we know is Braylon Womack and the family have publicly said they're just waiting on their number one choice, Ohio State, to give them the offer that they want. And it's going to need to come up a bit because Auburn appears to be going all in. Now, Ohio State needs to decide here after you've just lost Jacob Weatherspoon. And you've got, by the way, Blaine Bradford, an LSU, brother at LSU. And I got a text right before I started this show from my buddy that's the LSU booster who just, they just had a surge. Remember, they landed the number one defensive tackle, et cetera. They just had a surge. The guy who's ponying up the money for these guys is coming after Blaine and said he's not going to miss. So, that's coming probably. And you lose Weatherspoon. You've got Jordan Thomas and you've got Simeon Caldwell, who's going to be a linebacker. Now, what do you do in this situation? What have you done the last 2 years at corner? You got Devin Sanchez and Jordan Woods. Jordan Woods not going to stay at corner. He's too big. He's not going to be able to keep up. So you got Devin Sanchez, and in this class, you got Jordan Thomas. Well, then you had Jacob Weatherspoon, and you had Blaine Bradford. Simeon Caldwell doesn't really count because he's going to move. Okay. So you're going after Braylon Womack. What happens if you don't get Womack because you don't spend on Womack and then they come to try to get Bradford? Do you just not pay him either? Like, what is the flipping plan here, man? Because here's the deal. You know what? I'm not going to air what I just said. I just went on a 15-minute run, and I tell you what I'll do. The last 15 minutes that I just did, I'm going to package it up. I'll release it to the YouTube members. not for public consumption. Anyway, I do appreciate you guys so much, and I will talk to you soon. Juck and Bucks out.